Hi there, I'm Justin. I'm a mentor here at LEADucation, and this is day 4 of Intro to Tableau Public. So the agenda for today, it's going to be a bit longer of a video. We'll start off with aggregations, which is how you organize your data. And then we'll go through those cards that I showed you on day 2. So the marks card, which involves color, size, text, detail, tooltips, and I'll explain what those are, and the shape. Filters, including exclusions and sorting the data, and then pages, and then we'll also look at trend lines. So the theme for today is really how to adjust your graph to show what you want to show and really fine tune it. So starting off with aggregations, if you right click or click on this little down arrow on these fields, this menu will pop up, and you see in this area there's 3 options: dimension, attribute, or measure. And so if you hover over measure, there's all these other ones. So that's the area that I'm talking about here. So dimensions show all the data points in the field. Attributes show whether all the data points in one category or value. So for example, if you put an attribute on a field in the y-axis, and then your x-axis, it's going to be all the data points on the y-axis in one category or value on the x-axis have the same y value in relation to the x-axis. And that's confusing, but it'll make more sense when I show it to you in Tableau. And then measures show a statistical analysis of the data. So the sum, the average, the median, count, which is like how many entries there are for that one. And then, all this other stuff down there. All right, so I'm here in Tableau, and I'm going to show you first measures, which is just what it automatically does. So when I try and compare damages and death toll, I see there's only one dot, but I know that there's not only one hurricane, there's a bunch of them over many years. And so obviously something's wrong with this, because there wasn't one hurricane that killed 5,000 people and costed, what is that, $750 billion in damages, because this is in millions of dollars. So when I look up here at these fields, I see, oh, it's doing the sum of them. So it's adding up all of the entries for damages, and it's putting that as one data point, and it's doing the same thing for the death toll. So that's why there's just one data point. But if I want to change these, and I want to, maybe I can look at the average. And again, in this case, that's not what I'm looking for, but I'm just showing you how you can change it from the sum to the average or the median, or the count here is, it's down here. So I can see that there were 94 entries in the damages column. And then the average of all of those 94 was 56 deaths. But that's not really useful for this comparison. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here, click on this arrow, and go to dimension. And once I click that and do it for the other one, then I get my scatter plot graph that shows me each hurricane and each damages versus death toll comparison. So I can see here, this is one hurricane, and this is one, and then I can see most of the hurricanes are concentrated down here with low damages and low death tolls, and then it's only the extreme ones that kind of distort that. So that's how you can see the full set of data instead of just one analysis of it. And then I'm going to clear this, and to show you attributes, I'm going to compare year versus strength. So again, it's going to default to the sum, but that's not really what I want. I want to do, or first I'll show you what it's like as a dimension. So this is what that scatter plot looks like with all of the hurricanes and all of the data points. And then when I change it to an attribute, then it's going to go like that. And so it might be confusing because it doesn't really apply. In this case, it's not super helpful for looking at hurricane strengths. But what this is saying, basically, the asterisk means like it's like 0, it doesn't apply. So what this says, since there's a value here for 1952 and it's a strength of 2, that means that all of the hurricanes in that year had a strength of 2. So there might have been 1, there might have been 2, there might have been 7 hurricanes in 1952, but they all had a strength of 2. And then looking here at 1950, we see there's an asterisk, so it marks it as a 0. That means that not all of the hurricanes in that year were the same. So there might have been like, here we can actually check. Go back here, go to dimension, and there we see 1 was 4, 1 was 3, and 1 was 1, and so they're not all the same, so it can't be compiled into an attribute. But then if we look at 1952, we see there was in fact just 1 hurricane, or maybe there were multiple and they're all stacked on top of each other that had a strength of 2. So that's what attributes do. It's not super useful for this specific data, but it's something you can do. So starting off with the marks card, this is just a reminder of what it looks like. The first option there is colors. And so you can either left click on the box to adjust the colors of the data points as they are, or you can drag a field onto the color box, and it'll adjust the colors of the points by the field that you dragged it on. So if the field is like a scale of 1 to 100, it'll have one color be 1 and another be 100, and it'll adjust the colors based on a gradient between 1 and 100, depending on what the value of that data point is in your table, depending on that field. So you can also adjust the scale of colors by clicking on the upper right arrow in the color legend, which will appear in the upper right of your Tableau screen, and clicking on edit colors. And then you can decide, do I want it to be blue or green or red, or do I want it to be like a red to gold and have that be the gradient? And then you can also only have one field at a time adjust the color, just because it gets too complicated to have 2. And one other thing to mention is that continuous fields, so something like that's a scale of 1 to 100, that's going to show up as a gradient. So it might be like, I think the default is blue, so it might be white to dark blue, and it'll be all these shades of blue in between. But if you have a discrete field, which is like categories, like on a bar graph, then it'll be just colors. So like it might be red, blue, green, pink, yellow, instead of a gradient. And that'll make more sense when we show it in Tableau. The second thing is size. You can either just click on the box or drag a field to it and adjust the relative size of all of the, if you're doing a bar graph, it'll be bars, or scatter plot, it'll be the points, or the boxes, or whatever it is that's on the graph. You can adjust the size of that. Or same thing with the color, you can drag a field onto it and it'll adjust the size of whatever data points depending on that field. And so then you can also adjust the scale of the size by clicking on the upper right arrow in the size legend and clicking edit sizes, and then you can say what scale you want it on. So how small do you want the smallest to be, and how big do you want the biggest to be? And then you can do that. The text or the label box there, you just click on that to adjust the font size, text color, and what gets labeled. And then you can similarly drag a field onto the label box, and it will label each of the data points or the bars or whatever it is with whatever is in that field. And again, I'll show you all these and they'll make more sense. The detail one, this one you do have to drag it. You can't just click on it. You drag the desired dimension, which is above the little line in the data on the left, to the box to see the original dimension subdivided in the graph. So it's like that example with years versus months. And of course, there's an option in the top to click on the plus, but if you didn't have that or you were doing something else, it's a way to subdivide either your bar graph or whatever graph into sometimes it'll do multiple graphs, but sometimes it'll just keep it all in the same graph, depending on the order and depending on the fields. The tooltip box, you also, again, have to drag this one. You can't just click on it into the field and add it to the preview when you hover over something. So the great thing about Tableau is you can use your mouse and hover over a data point or a bar or, again, any of those other things, and it'll show you what the actual value is. So you can approximate it based on the axes, but then if you hover over that point, it'll show you the value. And using the tooltip thing, you can add a field into that value, or into that little preview box when you hover over something. And the last one is shape, and this one only applies to scatter plots. But you can click on it, or again, drag something on it and it'll change it, like it changes the color to change the shape of the scatter plot points. And so you can make it be weather symbols, or they have little people icons, or just geometric shapes. And yeah, so now we'll go into Tableau and I'll show you all this. Okay, so I'm here in Tableau with my graph of month versus driving time. And to start, I'll show the color mark. So I'm going to go here and I want to compare the month versus how much I drove by who I drove with. So I'm going to take adult's initials here, drag it onto the color bar, or the color box, and there, it automatically changes it to be orange for my mom and blue for my dad. And then I can visually see represented all in one graph. I don't have to have multiple graphs, and I don't have to like compare them and cross-reference them. It's just all there in the same graph, and it's not subdivided into two separate graphs with my mom versus my dad. It's all in one, which is great, and it's pretty easy. And then if I want, I can change this, just drag this right from here, or if it wasn't there, I could drag it from there, and I can just move it into size, and then it's going to change. Now this looks funny because it's subdivided in the same bar, but I can see here the regular size is my mom, and then the small size is my dad. And so that's just another way of visually representing something in the same graph without having to cross-reference multiple ones. And then also, if I want, I can go in here and just click on this. And now it's set to blue, that's the default. But if I want, I can change it to green or gray or black or anything like this. And that's without like a filter on it, or a mark on it, I mean. And then if I drag that there and then click on color, edit colors, then I can say, oh, for my dad, I don't want blue, I want yellow. And for my mom, I'll do brown. And then click apply, and then I can change it like that. Or moving my video box, I can also go over here and click edit colors, and it gets me to that same menu. Put me back there. And so now I'll do label. So I don't like these colors. I'm going to change this back. So just go like that and that. Apply. Much better. So now I want to label these. Here, I'm going to subdivide it out one more into day and keep the month there. And so now there's more bars for me to label. So I'm going to go over here to time of day and drop it into the label one. And now it's going to tell me this was all during the day, this was all during the day, but there was some at night. And then you see it divides it up even further. This is all day, and then I can just see that a little easier. Or even if I wanted to compare something like, here, let's get rid of these. If I wanted to compare the, the skills practice there, and then I have adult initials still on the color, then I could add, sorry, not that, then I could add a label here. and it would tell me, oh, this year is all 2019, this is all 2019, and then I only practice this one specific day in 2020. So yeah, that's how the label works. Now I'm here with month versus driving time, just resetting this. And I still have the year up there to show you that it's subdivided up there, and then I can subdivide each of these bars. So let's say I want to take time of day and drag that into detail, and now it shows me there. This is in the day, this is at night, or I can not do detail and I can do skills practiced, and then that's a little more subdivided. And when you have a scatter plot, it'll actually like subdivide it into separate plots, but still kind of on the same graph. And I'll show you that in the hurricane one. So I'm here in the hurricane Tableau book, and I have month versus damages, and it's like a scatter plot here. So I have months on the bottom, and then there's just one dot for each month. And it's doing the sum, but I don't really need to worry about that for right now. So I'm going to take year, and I'm going to drag it into detail. And then it's going to subdivide each month into the years. So I can see, if I didn't have year, I just have months. It's just the total during the month. And I can see the most damages were caused in August, but I can't really see the year by year breakdown. And so when I add in that detail, then I can see, oh, it was August 2005 that's causing this spike, and August 2017. And then I can go down here and say September 2017. It just gives me more accuracy and more precision in these data points. And that is the benefit of detail. And I'll just stay here to show you the rest of them. So for tooltip, this is this little thing that you see moving with my cursor. That is the tooltip. It says month, August, damages, 401,121. And so I can also add, if I add back in the year detail, I see that. And then I can also add the region into the tooltip, and it'll show me this was in the Gulf Coast, or that was also in the Gulf Coast. And it'll show me all of these in the month that were in the same one. And so you see it's attributed over here. And so the ones with an asterisk are the ones that, the months where there were hurricanes in multiple different regions. And so it can't compile them into one category because it's not one category. But all these other ones here, I can see, oh, all of these that happened in September 2017, that was all in the Southeast. Or this one, all of these that happened in November of 1985 were in the Gulf Coast, etc., so on and so on. So then the last one I can change is the shape. So I can click on this and I can say I want them all to be boxes, or upside down triangles, or filled in circles, or diamonds, or here, I'm going to get rid of year so it's easier to manipulate these shapes. Or I can change it by landfall, death toll. So I'm going to go over here to shape, and then if I go to the right, or if I move my box and go over here to the right, it's going to show me the circle means there were 5 deaths. So there were 5 deaths that November, or I guess in all November. So there was probably only 1 or 2 hurricanes that happened in November over these 70 years. And then the square means 53, and so on. So that's just a way that you can combine all these different fields and then change your graph depending on that. And just to add, I can also have multiple of these marks in one. So this is also going to change then the shape of all these. It's going to add more shapes because there's more death tolls per region. But let's say I didn't have the shape, I could also do size by damage. And then I see at the top it's really big, and at the bottom they're really small because these are the same ones. Or I can do size by death toll, and that's going to be a bit different. And then I can add the strength, but that's going to be sum because this is sum too. But that doesn't matter. I'm just showing you you can add a bunch of these marks in the same graph and really fine tune your viz. The next card I'm going to talk about is the filters card. So the type of filters you can put on a field vary by the type of field that it is and the type of data that it is. So on the right here, these are the kind of filters you can do for numerical values. And on the left is the kind of filters you can do for like named values or values that aren't numerical. So in the general tab over here, you can do, you can select or deselect the names or the text values or whatever that you either want to keep or exclude. Or you can also do that thing that I've showed you before where you just right click on a single data point and click exclude or keep only. And then in the wildcard tab up here, you can filter by a phrase or a word or something, and you can filter that in or out. In the condition, you can filter by a field and a specific condition within that field. So you can say, you know, if it's within these ranges or if it's above this range or below this range within a certain field, or like if it starts with an A or whatever. And then the top is similar to condition in that you can filter by just the top, you know, 10 names by damages or something. So, and same for the condition. It's like the top, it's like the names that fall within, like, I don't know, the first $100,000 of damage or something. And then on the right here, you see the filter for numerical values. And this is saying only show me data points that either are within this range of values that I'm going to tell you, or at least this many, or at most this many, or some other special one where you just kind of want one data point, or like varying amounts of data points that don't fall within a range. So I'm here in Tableau and I have month versus driving time, but I have this pesky little bar over here. So if I right click, I can click on exclude as I have been doing, but I'm going to show you how to do it with the filters card. So I'm going to take date, take date and drag it into this filters card. I'm going to select days, and then because my lowest subdivision is by day, click next, and then I want to unclick this null and click apply. And there we go. Now it's gone. And that's just, I could go through here and say, I only want to see, you know, the first of the month or the first 10 days of the month. And then click apply. And there we go. I see the first 10 days in each month. But I do want to see all of the month. So I'll go like that. And then if I go over here to condition, I can sort by field. Click driving time. And then sum, I'll say less than 60. So when I click apply, now it only shows me days where I drove less than 60 minutes. So it's not very many, just a couple. Or I could go here, change it to greater than, and see days where I drove over 120 hours. And then I see days where I drove over 2 hours. And so if I go over here to top, then I can say the top 10 by driving sum. So, by driving time, the sum of that. So what this will show me is, apply, there we go. Now it's showing me the top 10 days in each month, if there are more than 10 days that I drove in that month, which there are in June, where I drove more than, or it's just the top 10 days. Or I could change this, hello, there we go. Go to date, and then change it to months. And now I go to months, deselect null again, and then if I go over here to top, I can select by field, and just say, show me the top 5 months by driving time. And so I'll click apply, and now, again, it's subdivided by day, but it's showing me the top 5 months by total driving time instead of, if I go here to none, instead of showing me all of the months. So that's how you can filter things with text or with dates. And then, oops, I do want that actually. So I'll just click exclude. And then if I want to filter by driving time, I can add this up here to the filters card. And then I want to filter by the sum, since that's what I have on my graph. Next, and then I see that numerical filter thing, so I can drag this and say 55, apply, and now it's only showing me days where I drove more than 55. Or I can say between 55 and 140, and now it's that. Or I can go to at least, and I can say at least, I don't know, 34 minutes. Or at most, show me under 137 minutes. So, and then the special one is just null or non-null values. So I want to see non-null or just that one weird one, but I can't do that because I have an exclusion. So I'll just ignore that one for now. So yeah, that's how you can mess with the ranges and filter through all your data points to see specifically the data you want to see, which is super, super helpful if you have, thousands and thousands of entries of sales or whatever you're doing, something over lots of years and lots of days. You can just filter and see what you want to see, which is super helpful. The last card in Tableau is pages, and these allow you to see data in parts at a time instead of everything at once divided in lots and lots of graphs. So here on the left is this big graph. There's lots of months, and then there in each subdivision of months, there's every year or like every month. Point is, there's lots and lots of data points within these. The 1905 and all that is messed up because of the way I input it in the table. But I can take this complicated, messy graph and I can turn it into a page where I just see 1 month at a time. So I see, for the month of June, show me all of the years and all of the data points. And then I can change it to the month of July, show me all the years and all the data points. And so I'll show you that in Tableau. Okay, so here I have that same graph. It's divided by month and then by year. And you see it's a lot of different graphs, and it's a lot to take in, and it could be simpler. So I'm going to take this month field here and drag it into the pages card. And then if I move my video box over here, then I see what I had earlier. So it's split out by June, or by month. So this is June. This is the graph of June over these 70 years. And then I can switch it to July, and then I just see one graph at a time instead of 6 or 7. And then August, September, October, November. So it's just a much simpler way to show enlarged graphs, because before they're all squished in to fit lots of them in a row. But with pages, you can make it so that you just see one thing at a time, and it's not all subdivided and confusing and complicated. Trend lines are super, super, super important for data analysis, especially with scatter plots or other things like that, where there's lots and lots of data points and you need to see where the trend is. So to show a trend line on your graph, and I'll show you this in Tableau, up here in the left, normally you're on the Data tab, which shows you all your fields, but if you switch to the Analytics tab, you can drag trend line and then drag it onto one of these, and it'll show your trend line. So here it is in Tableau. So here I am again comparing death toll and damages, and I have my scatter plot, and there's lots and lots of points, but I'm not really sure where the trend is. I see down here there's lots and lots of points, and then up here there's one, so I think it might be a diagonal like this, but there's all these points down here, so maybe it goes like that, or there's all these points up here, so maybe it's more vertical. So I don't really know, so I'm going to put in a trend line. So up here, as I said, there's a lot of fields. In your Data tab, I'm going to switch over to Analytics. I'll go down here to Trend Line, and then when I drag it out here, it says Add a Trend Line. I'm going to go with linear because I think that'll be the best fit. And I see I was actually more right the first time. It's a lot more directly proportional and diagonal with, you know, the origin and the furthest data point. But then if I exclude this, let's see what happens. Because that is an extreme outlier. Then I see, okay, so it's much more flat. And so the trend with the higher death tolls you get, the higher the damages are, but not in the same proportion. You're much more likely to have just a slight increase in damages with a massive increase in death toll. And so that's why these trend lines are super important, because if I were to say, oh, a hurricane is coming in with 500 deaths, what damages might it have caused? If I don't know that yet, if the cost analysis is still happening because it takes a long time, I can look at this trend line and say, oh, look at that. It's probably going to be around 15,000 if it's following this trend, although when you hover over it, you see the R squared value, which is how closely fit the trend is to the data points. It's 0.01, and that means it's very, very inaccurate. One is the data points are quite literally on line. They're perfectly matched up. And 0 is like, it's not a trend. So this is sort of a trend, but not really. But it can definitely be more helpful for showing places where there's more trends and where the data is more closely linked together. So for next time, now that you know a lot about graphing in Tableau, play around with the features you've learned about, the ones I just taught you, the ones we've gone over in previous lessons, and create some really fun, unique, and interesting graphs that you can analyze what you want to look at. So I just wrote down some things you can compare. So different periods of time versus driving hours. So like years, months, days, stuff like that. Driving environment versus driving time. Or if you want to play around with the hurricane one, death toll versus damages, name versus lots and lots of fields. That's super interesting. Or geographical area versus a field, which is something I haven't really shown very much. And of course, there's lots and lots and lots of other ones you can do. And this is going to be really good for next session, where we'll go over combining these graphs into dashboards and stories, so they're easier to understand and look at the context of the overall data set and the overall, either the underlying cause or something, or looking at the patterns. And so having lots and lots of graphs that you can choose from and say, oh, I want to analyze this. Oh, and this other thing that doesn't seem like they'd be related, but then when you put the graphs next to each other, it turns out that they're really similar. Or maybe you can say these things you would think they'd be related, but when you put them next to each other, there's no correlation. So make lots of graphs, really play around, see what you can do, discover lots of things, look at patterns, and I'll see you next time.